Now joining us on Houston Sports Talk, one of our regulars, better known as the Cliff Clavin of the show. We welcome back to the bar in his familiar stool, the host of Texans TV and new media coordinator, Drew Dougherty. Drew, you just got back from the draft in New York, and before I have you break down each player 1 through 256, give me your impressions of being at the draft. This year, we had some theme music for players. We had the Johnny Watch. What sticks out for you that maybe people missed at home?
Man, it's just a wild ride. We get there at about 4, and you have to stand in line for about an hour to pick up your credentials. And then once you get your credentials, you're just zipping around all over the place. We were on the red carpet interviewing some players, but also I did 3 live hits for the Fox Sports Southwest pregame or pre-draft show for Texans Huddle. So, I was doing that, and then you rush inside once that thing's over, and you get your stuff set up for when the pick actually takes place. And the Texans were picking first, so you didn't have to wait around long. But then I zipped back outside at about 6:30 and did a radio hit on my phone with Sports Radio 610, and then you go back in, and it seems like right after I got inside, you hear the commissioner saying the Texans are on the clock, and then bang, 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 Clowney gets picked. Well, after he does all his radio interviews, about 40 minutes after he's actually picked, we got him and we put a microphone on him and we followed him with a camera, and it's up on HoustonTexans.com, those videos. So pretty fun behind the scenes stuff, and it's just a wild, wild scene to say the very least.
I saw you annoying foreigners in New York City, asking them to spell Jadeveon for you. And one thing I noticed, Drew, is you were saying his name about 3 different ways. So I know you're happy that JD is now what we're going with.
Yes, Jadeveon is the guy. Jadeveon Clowney is he is the first round pick, and I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to do a lot of great things for the defense. Just in a vacuum alone, he's going to be a great player, and I think he's going to put up some numbers. But if you examine what he's going to do for the rest of the defense, what he's going to allow J.J. Watt to do, which is kind of frightening, what he's going to, in tandem with J.J. Watt, do for the secondary. I mean, it's going to be one of those trickle-down effects that's really going to help everybody out.
Yeah, it's going to be fun watching this defense. And the big takeaway from this draft was that the Texans drafted tough, athletic, and versatile players, starting with J.D. Clowney. Bill O'Brien has made it a priority to have a tougher mental and physical Houston Texans team, and the type of players picked by Rick Smith is proof of that, isn't it?
Yeah, you would think so. You would think so. And, I think you bring up those two attributes that they're looking for, and versatility is another one I think that's very important, because if you look at it, basically every player aside from Savage is capable of playing 2 positions and can play not just the position that they played necessarily in college. So that jives with what we've seen Bill Belichick do with the Patriots. And I think it's going to be fun to see how many variations of things come up over the years with these guys that have been taken.
One of the big mysteries for most Texans fans, Drew, is Tom Savage. Not many people saw him. He wasn't a guy that was even on the radar a few months ago. What can you tell us about him? I saw you mention on Twitter that he'd actually considered transferring to Penn State to play for O'Brien at one point, right?
He did, yeah. He had this kind of odyssey in college, and he started out at Rutgers, was a big-time recruit, did some nice things as a freshman, and then as a sophomore lost his job. And he said, he kind of left in a huff, and he made an immature move, and, he thought he was too big for his britches. So he goes to Arizona. And while he's in Arizona, they change coaches, and he's kind of not the new guy, which is Rich Rodriguez, not the new guy's guy. And so he leaves Arizona, and then the NCAA denies him that extra year, and so he has to sit out. And he had to work construction for a spring, so he's wearing those steel-toed boots, and he's getting barked at by his dad. And I think that'll give you a pretty good perspective on things, because I think it made him realize, it hit home, hey, I have a talent that not many others do, and that talent's going to keep me away from having to work stuff like this if I can fully utilize that talent. So he buckled down and had a nice year at Pitt, and he got taken by the Texans. And this is going to be the 5th different offensive system he'll have in as many years. So I think once he becomes fluent with that playbook, to steal a phrase from John Harris, our Texans analyst, once he becomes fluent with the playbook, you'll probably see him on the field. Don't know how long that's going to be, but he's going to do his darndest to make that happen.
Speaking of the QBs on the Texans, it is still an unsettled position right now, as you mentioned, with Savage and then also Fitzpatrick and Case. The lack of a true franchise quarterback has led to uncertainty with Andre Johnson, who made news saying, "Is this still the place for me?" If you were making a campaign for Andre Johnson to remain a Houston Texan, what would you tell him?
Well, I mean, that's something that upper management would do, but if you look just at the numbers, at what he makes and all that stuff, it's cost prohibitive for other teams to trade for him, and the Texans are not going to cut him. So, I mean, I just think it's a situation that it's going to come to a resolution, and I don't think Andre Johnson is going anywhere. I think he wants to win, which everyone wants to win, and he's just voicing his displeasure. But he still hasn't missed any games, and he hasn't even missed any mandatory practices. So it's one of the things we'll let time kind of develop and heal it out. And I think it's just kind of one of those blown off steam type of moments right now for him.
Well, one position not addressed in the draft was middle linebacker. Outside of Cushing, what is your guess on how the team is looking to fill the other position? We keep hearing about Brooks Reed moving inside, and some people like the free agent signing of Michigan State's Max Bullock. Touch on those two guys and any other ideas at that position.
Yeah, I think Brooks Reed is very likely going to be that guy that takes over there. Don't sleep on Jeff Tarpinian. He did some nice things last season in a backup role, having to fill in. I think he's a possibility. Yeah, I think Brooks Reed will likely see some time there. I think the Texans are going to get creative as far as moving guys around. Mentioned the versatility earlier in this interview. We could see situations where Cushing is lined up outside even as a pass rusher. I think there's a lot of different variables that are coming in, but those guys are going to get their shots. And yeah, Bullock is an interesting name, and we got our first look at him this Friday and Saturday with the rookie minicamp. So that's going to be interesting to see how he meshes and does with this new staff and with the rest of his teammates.
Well, the Texans have had their problems with the offensive line since the departures of Mike Brazzell and Eric Winston. But this year's draft saw help at the guard position with the selection of UCLA's Xavier Su'a-Filo. Got that right, I guess. This is a guy who spent 2 years away from football as a Mormon missionary, but he still loves the physicality of the game. And I read where he said he looks up to Logan Mankins for his nasty streak. Tell us about his background and how you think he'll slot into the Texans' offensive line. He's
so good that I think there would have been a shot at the Texans trading up into the first round to get him if they thought that he was going to come off the board late. He's going to be an excellent player for them, and he's probably going to play left guard to start out with, but don't rule out just yet that he could play right tackle, because remember, he was a left tackle at UCLA, and he shined. He did great things at UCLA, but everyone has kind of thrown their arrows at Derek Newton for the last 2 years on the right side of the line, and there could be a shot if this coaching staff wants. They might put him there too, but he's most likely going to play guard, and that's a good thing because your left guard last year was Wade Smith, and he's in all likelihood not going to come back. He's a free agent, and there's no real sign that they're going to actually sign him. Over at right guard, Brandon Brooks done some nice things, so he's probably going to stick around there. But Su'a-Filo instantly, at the very minimum, raises the competition level because now you've got him in there at left guard, but he could also compete over on the right side at right tackle, and that just makes it kind of rises all the ships with the tide, I suppose, because Quessenberry is a guy coming off of an injury last year, a leg injury that kept him out of the whole season, and he was someone that they thought, wow, based on what they saw in OTAs, he was somebody that they thought might contribute. And we haven't even mentioned Brendan Williams, who basically had one practice in the rookie minicamp and then was done for the entire season. So we'll see how soon he comes back too.
Your new colleague with the Texans, John Harris, really loved those last two picks, Vandy's Dre Hall and Mr. Irrelevant Lonnie Ballentine. Let me know if I'm saying those names right, by the way. It's a minefield with these Texans draft picks this year. Tell us a little bit about those two guys.
Well, it's not so much a minefield as it is like a trip to the optometrist's office and one of those eye charts. But yeah, I think it's Andre Howell and Lonnie Ballentine. So you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's what I've been told. That's the latest, as of about like 20, 30 minutes ago. But they're late round picks, so you always lower the expectations. But Hal did some really fine things in the SEC for Vanderbilt and helped them win a lot of ball games when, those guys have been a doormat. They've been like the Rice of the SEC forever, or name whatever, just traditional doormat college program, not to pick on the Owls or anything, because they're doing well lately. But he helped them win a lot of games, and there were folks that thought he was probably more of a mid-round pick, and he slid. So look for him to compete for a nickel corner spot, perhaps. And as far as Ballantyne, along with Hal, those guys are probably going to be special teamers if they make it initially. And maybe down the line he challenges for a safety position. But he's got measurables, meaning he's 6'3", 220. He's a big guy, so you want to see what he can do. But special teams help is where you're probably most likely to see them impact this team early on.
I don't know if you've got to know some of Bill O'Brien's new staff and some of the new people that have come in with O'Brien, but is there anybody that sticks out for you since we last talked to you in the last couple of months, that interesting characters or things that you've learned so far in the last 2 months?
John Perry, the tight ends coach. Yeah, he's a really interesting guy. He grew up with Bill O'Brien, played all sports with Bill O'Brien up in New England. He went and played football at the University of New Hampshire. He was a wide receiver for them. He was also the point guard on the basketball team. And he got into coaching, was at Brown right around the time O'Brien was at Brown as a coach. And last year he was basically like the offensive coordinator, the passing game coordinator for Delaware. But before that, for about 5-6 years, he was the head coach at Merrimack. And Merrimack is a small school up in Massachusetts, and that's where a guy named Sean Luiso went. And for just a short while, Luiso was a rookie in OTA's minicamp and training camp with the Texans, and he's the first guy to wear the number 90 after Mario Williams left. But yeah, he did some really good things, Perry, as a head coach at Merrimack, and won some ball games. But he's going to coach the tight ends, and they got C.J. Fedorowicz. They added him to go with Garrett Graham and Ryan Griffin up at the front, and then guys competing for roles on the team at the back are Zach Potter, Philip Supernall, and Brad Smelly. So I'm really interested to see what Perry does and how he influences the offense, because he's a fun guy to talk with, and he's very, very bright, as all of these guys are. But he's the one that sticks out to me as far as assistants to keep an eye on.
And don't challenge him to a game of horse on the basketball court either, it sounds like.
No way, man. I'm not going to challenge anybody to a game of horse. Probably dribble off my knee or something. So.
Well, that was host of the Texans TV, Drew Dougherty, on Houston Sports Talk. Check his stuff out on HoustonTexans.com. Great to catch up with you, Drew.
Thanks a lot, guys. It was always fun talking with you.
Check out more podcasts and interviews on HoustonSportsTalk.net.